So a lot of this is the first thing that we're going to go over is kind of the do's and don'ts in the videos. And don't worry so much about it if you already did your video that you may have something in there that, the first video is just to get something down and get your kind of a framework to work with. But this is sort of the things that are do's and don'ts of videos. And the first one is a do and don't of a video or interview. You never, ever, ever talk negative about anything with the previous employer, the job, or any of your coworkers. And, even if they were horrible, oh, that's hyphenated or not. But anyway, you never want to talk badly about them. So if you had a bad boss, don't go into how bad your boss was. If you had a bad job, don't say it was a terrible job, it was a dead-end job or anything like that. You never want to talk negatively about that. And I know that may sound odd, but talking negatively about it, employers have a very short period of time to make a very expensive decision. So they have a short period of time to make a very expensive decision, and maybe a few hours. And you can imagine that you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. You never want anything to come out that's negative. First of all, you don't want to be negative in the first place. But second of all, if you criticize them, obviously being negative is a bad thing. You never want to be negative on a job interview. No one wants a bummer around. 2, you'll come off as a gossip. And gossips can be obviously very disruptive to a work environment. It might also appear that you're playing office politics. And again, that's also kind of going along a little bit with gossip, a little bit different, is that you're trying to get in a line with certain people or go against other people and that sort of thing. And the fourth one is that you may appear that you're difficult. There's other reasons too, but these are probably the most enough. This is one of those things that can sink you right away. This can sink you immediately. If you start talking negatively about another employer, your boss, a job you had, this job was terrible, I didn't like it, I never, that sort of thing, immediately that's going to, for most jobs, that's going to sink it. Unless you have a crazy strong resume, you don't want to have any of that on there. And you don't do this in your personal statement. Don't do it when you're talking with them. We'll talk a little bit about what you do later on with it, how you make that into a positive. But you'd never talk negatively about a previous job, a previous coworker, a previous employer. It's something most recruiters are going to want to avoid that. So don't ever talk negatively about a previous job that you have. Nothing wrong with mentioning it, and nothing wrong with saying you learned something from it, that sort of thing. But to put it into a negative light is something you don't want to do. All right. Is this thing focused?
Yeah, I can see it.
You see it? Okay. Notice anything bad about other job candidates? So there might be other people applying for the job. you want to avoid saying, okay, I am a better I'm a better job candidate than the others, than this person, than that person, him or her, or whatever it is. You don't want why? A number of reasons. You sound like you're arrogant. You're a braggart. And it also kind of sets up a sort of an aggressive behavior, and that you're not really a team player. Maybe divisive. So there's nothing wrong with saying that you're listing out the positive, good things that you can bring to a job. But as far as comparing yourself to and not only that, that's their job to do that. That's their job to compare it. So don't come out and say you might be better than the other candidates. It's not saying that's not true. However, you don't want to come out and say that. It really shows as a sort of almost like a negative, that other people are bad, I'm good, that sort of thing. So you want to try to avoid that. All right, and that's both in your statement and if you're in an interview situation also. This is sort of focused on just the personal introduction statement. And that is, it's not a resume. So you generally don't put in a bunch of dates. You don't say, I was a supervisor from July 2nd, 2016 to September 38th, whatever. Don't put that in there. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying your supervisor. If you're making a point, saying, well, I had I have hands-on leadership skills that I learned as a supervisor for XYZ. Nothing wrong with saying that. Just you don't need to go into the massive amount of detail. They're going to see that in your resume. But when you're doing your personal introduction statement, if you only put those things in there that you are putting in there to kind of convey the type of person that you are. Right, so you don't need to go into all the details of where you went to school, what you got, all that kind of stuff, unless you're making a point about it. If you're making a point about it in the video, then there's fine to put in, but you don't need to go into the details of it. Instead of saying, say, a GPA, you probably just say, say something along the lines that I did very well, or something along those lines that are not specific, because they're probably not going to be looking for specific things. They're not going to be looking for specific dates or anything in that. The introduction is just kind of what it says. It's just introducing you to them. And they're going to try to know whether this is someone they should call in for an interview or not. Okay, some of the do's. Now, this is where those experiences, that even if that every experience is a great experience, even if it was a bad experience. Meaning that if you had let's say that you had a bad boss that was, whatever, terrible people, yelled at people, all that kind of stuff. How do you turn that into a positive? You say it's a great experience. Learning how to, oops, this one kind of handle. That's the the composer handle people. Sorry about that. My internet just went out. I'm not sure how far I got. I apologize. So weird. Okay. Did you guys get number 3? Did we talk about that or no?
Yes.
Yes, we would always
Okay.
have.
Okay. All right. So let's go down for 4. So 4. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Okay. So bad boss. You turn that into about handling people. You don't have to come out and say that I learned that you don't treat people this way. You can turn that into a positive. So turning that into a positive is simply as making it an experience. If you work for a bad company, it was say it was great to learn how they operated. Now, you may have learned how not to operate. Now I'm getting an echo. I think it's grabbing 2 different microphones here. Which microphone is it? All right. So, great to learn how they operated, that sort of thing. Let me make sure I have. Rehearse your statement over and over again. This is one of those things that is, it can be boring, it can be tedious, but it's good to do. Keep going it over and over and over again until you get natural with your own voice, with your own inflections and all that kind of stuff. Do things over and over until you're comfortable doing it. Everyone, when they first do a video, they look like a deer in headlights. The first time you run through something, it just is. You go through it 2-3 times. If you need to go through it 5 or 6 times, that's fine. But the more times you go through it, the more natural you're going to be. You're naturally going to speak about it. If you're not comfortable, if you go through it a few times and you're not comfortable, maybe you should change it. Sometimes the wording's awkward or the pace is awkward or whatever it is. None of the stuff's in stone. There isn't anything you have to do with it. So put in something that you might. I'll put it to you this way: better than content is to be natural. So if there's something in the content that is very hard for you to get into, to get through, sounds like you're stuck in the mud or whatever, ditch it. Better to sound comfortable, natural than to sound forced. It just makes it it just makes it easier to watch, and more likely that they're going to want to call you in for an interview. Try to speak directly and avoid the extra words. And this is something I'm terrible at, so this is a very hypocritical thing for me to talk about. But one of the things that when you're going through this, is to avoid words like. I do this all the time. So this is very, avoid the ums, the uhs, any other grunts. Try to avoid those. Try to go through without doing those. some phrases to try to avoid. You know, I was very good at dealing with customers. Get rid of the I know, or you know. Say, I was very good dealing with customers. Like is another one that comes up a lot. Like, I was really good with the customers. Again, throw the like out. I was really good with the customers. Just leave it at that. Another one that comes up sometimes is people will say goes instead of said. Oops, that should be an I there. My boss goes to me, try to avoid that. My boss said to me, you do a good job, or whatever it is. So try to avoid, these are just some of the things you try to avoid. It really is just being direct. Take out those things that kind of muddle it down. And these are things that sort of stop the flow. So try to avoid them. Again, I'm being completely hypocritical. You'll catch me doing those two a lot. Sometimes I do that, but I just said, see, there are things that you should try to avoid. Again, these videos don't have to be perfect. So if you have one or two of those, don't worry about it, but try to avoid it, especially if you have it every sentence. You know this, you know that, you know when I was doing this, you know when I was doing that. Try to get rid of the you knows. And there's nothing wrong talking that way, but it just comes off, in a video, it comes off a little bit differently. This one, look at the camera a lot. Smile a lot. So look at the person viewing the video, smile, again, part of being positive and all that sort of thing. And just kind of give you a, let's see here, where's my other camera? Yeah, I hope the sound doesn't go off when I do this. I think I said it's sound. Try to look at the camera itself. It makes it easier. There's nothing wrong with occasionally looking back and forth, that sort of thing, and that actually can be very natural. But try looking at the camera, and the camera is looking at the person. So think about you're looking at the person, you're actually looking right at the camera. What you want to avoid is this sort of thing where you're talking, because you're looking at your notes or you're looking at the camera or whatever, whereas you're not really. It doesn't look like you're interacting with them. It looks like they're watching somebody read.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, teacher, but I'm at work, so I'm watching my residents.
Oh, okay, very good. That's fine. So this is oh, you're walking around. Look at that. It's an action video. That's a good video. If you could walk around, I'll talk about that in a second here, but that also makes things a little more interesting. But looking at the camera as best you can, one of the things you can do, and I can't do it because this is the camera that I'm using, but if you try to put the camera up on books or something right in the middle of the screen, then it becomes natural just to look at it, and that's actually what I'm doing right now. I got a camera right in the middle of my screen, so if I want to look at the video, it's right there. So as much as you can, one other thing you can do is to, if you are going to read something, you work through your stuff. If you can get something to set the paper up, set it on some kind of up against the wall or something, so that you can read it from behind the camera, behind the phone. That's also a very good way of doing it, where you just have to peek up a little bit, and if you're just doing that every now and then, looking up at it, it's not that distracting as long as you keep focused on it. So try to make it look like you're looking right at the person who you're talking to. So, and again, because this is, you're trying to convey to them that you are talking to them, and you're just introducing yourself to them. Just like you would, if you were to introduce yourself to somebody else, you wouldn't be looking this way if they were in front of you. Same thing. All right, what am I on now? Make sure that your video that the sound is turned up loud enough. It didn't happen a lot. There's a couple of the videos had really weak sound, and the problem with that is that even if you do turn it up, it becomes very distorted usually. So it sounds kind of muffled if it's if it sounds too weak. I know sometimes it's hard to do that, especially if you have a phone or something like that. That it's difficult to change that sound, but if you can, bump up the sound on it. And sometimes if you have software, you can do it too. That'll move the sound up higher on it. Make sure you're in the video. That's another thing that sometimes happens, especially when people are reading something. If they have this, it doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes this will disappear. And then when I was, we moved to Alaska when I was 14, and they come back and look at the, so make sure that you're in the screen. Now, if you're looking at the video, that's better. But try to avoid ever leaving the screen. Of going to do something else. So if you are going to read something, there's nothing wrong with it. If you put it, take this, put it behind the camera, you like an earthquake. If you put it behind the camera, that you can actually read through it, and it looks fairly natural. Rather than trying to go off to the side and read it there. So there's some things in the video. Again, always be very positive. Don't ever talk negatively about any experience you've had. If it is negative, it's a positive experience. If nothing else, you learn what not to do. So, always try to frame those things as a positive. Any questions? And again, you don't have to redo your video, and I would encourage you to look at them, and especially as you get through the quarter and you get closer to the actual job search, that you go through and try to really make them kind of smooth. Another thing about videos is making them interesting. One of the things that makes them interesting is being outside. And again, this is one of those things I'm very hypocritical about, because I'm sitting in what's basically a closet. It used to be my son's gaming room. I had to say, so try to, being outside is a very good one, because being outside, it actually puts people at ease. It looks much bigger. It looks, pleasant. It looks all those things that you want it to look like. It looks grand. And it makes them feel at ease. So being outside is really a good one to do, and especially if you're like me. If you're going from a little closet bunker, basically, I think this room's 8 by 8 feet. It'll definitely look better if you're saying this out to somebody that it'd be done. Go to a park, go to someplace that's nice. Someplace, if you shoot something in the morning, a lot of times these places that are a lot of monuments and things like that, there's no one around in the morning. So a lot of times if you go early in the morning, you'll have the place to yourself a lot of times. And if you shoot a video, if you do get editing software, it's not a bad idea to use it, and you can kind of splice it together and make it a little bit more interesting. But just doing a regular video, if you practice it, look natural, look at the camera, you should be fine. And again, don't worry about the content as much as projecting what kind of person you are and projecting those things that are positive. Smile. Don't worry about being silly about it a little bit. People like people being lighthearted. They want to be around people who can laugh and that sort of thing. Business is social, and that's one of the most important things to learn. Is that it's social. It is not a science. It's not necessarily X, Y, Z that the person who's most qualified gets the job. The person who gets qualified is the best for the job. There are other things that go into it, and the big thing is that it's social. And so when you do the introduction statement, your whole aim is to be somebody that they would want to work with, and somebody they want to call in for an interview. Don't worry so much about the resume and all that kind of stuff. They'll go through that. That's one of those things that we'll go through. They'll go through later, or that is less important than someone that they can work with. Any questions on any of that? Do you have any questions about anything else that we're going through? I think the next thing up on the agenda is starting to build a resume. I'm sure you guys, some of you guys have been in other classes. It's very similar to that. Start looking at resumes. One thing about this class that I've talked about before is that you pick and choose those things you want to do. Look for resumes online, and it's not a bad idea to look for ones that you like. Ones that you like, you're probably going to be more interested in doing than say, here's what your resume has to be. Some places have you fill out a form, that's the way it is. But for your resume that you're going to send out to people that you have some creativity with, your professional portfolio, for instance, look for those things that you like, that you think would present you well. Not necessarily what would present me well or somebody else or other stuff. So this whole class is really about you trying to figure out what the best way for you to go as far as presenting yourself. Any questions on any of that? Okay, and again, in these videos, they don't have to be perfect, but try to make them so that they're easy to look at, that you look natural, you look the way you really are. Not a bad idea to have a friend in the room that can lighten it up and whatever. I'll tell you just a really brief, boring story. That I actually took video class. I actually learned how to be a videographer this years ago. It was back when we had tape cameras. So when we were taping videos for the accounting department, and one of the instructors, real good instructor, real natural in the classroom, put him in front of the camera, and he looked like a deer in headlights. Just froze. And so we went through the first one, and I said, I think we're gonna have to do this again because this is terrible. I didn't come out and say it was terrible, but it was what was implied. But we started joking and laughing about stuff, and then the second take, it was great. So it's not a bad idea to kind of loosen up and get around somebody that you can joke around with. They can make fun of you. You can make fun of them, like that kind of thing. It comes off as much more natural if you can do that. So anyway, if you have any questions or if you ever want me to look at anything, just send it to me. If you want me to look at your resume, if you want me to...
I do.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know how to do that LinkedIn. I tried. I don't know how to put them recommendations and them activities, and it frustrated me to the point I wanted to drop your class, but I still kept you.
Don't do that. It's probably something on my end. So the links aren't... I'll take a look at them.
I don't understand how to do it. So I mean, my stuff is in there. I asked 2 people recommendations, 2 teachers I had, and I don't know how to turn the activities on now, but everything else, my it's cool as far as I was saying. But I didn't know how to send it to you because I couldn't hear you on the video. You were saying do this and that, and I couldn't understand.
Oh. Well,
so I couldn't, because I think you was kind of sick that day, so you're doing a lot of coughing, and the video was very low where I couldn't hear it. Or it could have been me, but I couldn't. I couldn't.
Actually, was it today? Was today's video okay?
Yeah, today's video okay. You just kept going in and out. You need a better internet, but other than that.
Yeah. Right, well, I'll tell you what I did. I used to have a really nice camera for this, but it kept flickering and doing bad things, and also the sound was weird. So now I got a better mic.
Boom.
It just went off. Unplugged it, but it will go back on.
Because I sent my target construction in yesterday, but it was late, and I was trying to help the other students see how to do it because I had to go online and finally try to how to do that because I wasn't understanding that reading. I need some examples. Yeah.
I just hooked up my camera. Okay.
For all 6 of them, all 5 of them, 4. But you can paste and copy off the internet with the jobs and put them in there because they're saying you can do that because you're trying to see what jobs are similar to the jobs that you're picked.
Got it. Oh, okay, I see how you did it. 6 and then the 5. Okay.
Now the ones with the numbers bound, them was my, I put them up.
I'm gonna call it a night here. This is not fun.
We're gonna call it a night? Okay.
So anyway,
he froze again.
So this was my words on the 6, the 5s, and all that, but I copied the description of the jobs on the stuff.
So does anyone have any Does anyone have any questions on anything? I gotta test my mic. Hello, hello?